Minister of Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Tawa Tanzi, welcome. How are all you? It is with great respect and awe I arise today to reply to a speech from the throne and offer my maiden speech as a first-time elected member of the Legislative Assembly of Alberta for the constituency of Maskwacis-Wetaskiwin. I want to first acknowledge the lands we are on as Treaty 6 territory, traditional lands of the First Nations and the Métis people. They've been marked for centuries by the footprints of the first people that call this area home. I extend my congratulations to all the members of the Assembly on their elections. It is truly a team effort to get here, requiring the backing and support of our family and friends. No matter what political affiliation we represent, I think it's safe to say we all have two common goals. One being to represent the best interests of our constituency, and to move this great province forward. Finally, I'd like to thank my constituents for allowing me the privilege to represent them in this esteemed House, and I am truly humbled and blessed by their act of faith. It is a heavy responsibility and one that I take very seriously. My constituency is Maskwacis-Wetaskiwin. Maskwa meaning bear, and Chis means hills, and Wetaskiwin is Spatnau. That means the hills where peace was made. Approximately half the population of my electoral division is Indigenous. I grew up in the middle of the four bands at, we called it Mamio-Sagan, otherwise known as Pigeon Lake. And racism sadly was still an issue. And when I went to school, I can remember my first day I came home from school, my shirt was tore, I had a bloody nose, and my mom said, "My goodness, what happened to you?" And I says, "Well, they were beating up on my friend Larry." And my mother says, "Why?" I said, "Because they said he was an Indian." She said, "Well, he is." I said, "Well, why do you get beat up?" "Well, they said I wasn't an Indian." She says, "You're not." Broke my heart. So Maskwacis-Wetaskiwin used to be a big resource producing area, but the past few years has seen a steady drop in resource manufacturing and oil gas activity. This hurts the region as there are several manufacturers in my riding supplying electrical components, agricultural equipment, and oil field components. In fact, just last week I was at the Leduc-Wetaskiwin Chamber of Commerce, and it was there that I learned the County of Wetaskiwin lost $1.6 million in tax revenue in the past 3 years. This has meant they've had to dip into reserves to cover the shortfall. But my residents are hardy people, willing to dig in, tighten their belts, and get to work when times are tough. Recently, the riding has begun to revert back to its agricultural roots, helped by some of the best topsoil seen in Western Canada. We also have a large tourism base, which is really beginning to pick up, fueled by the many lakes in my riding, as well as some of the best golf courses in the province, all in close proximity to the city of Edmonton. And I would be remiss if I did not mention the Reynolds Alberta Museum, a crown jewel to be found in Wetaskiwin, and I'm happy to report that the museum will be getting an expansion to the Aviation Hall of Fame this year. Also, some good news on the economic front at home. A new grain handling facility is being constructed along the tracks just south of Wetaskiwin. It's the G3 facility, and it'll be the state-of-art grain handling facility, which will feature a 42,600-ton storage facility with a 17,000-ton main house and 3 8,300-ton steel bins, surrounded by a 134-car loop track on a property south of Wetaskiwin. This construction has meant new jobs and new money flowing into the riding and Alberta's economy. The unique JEDI partnership, the Joint Economic Development Initiative between the County of Wetaskiwin and the town of Millet, was key to bringing this project to fruition. I will now move to discuss how the four bands of Maskwacis are dealing with the tumultuous Alberta economy. We have the Montana, Louis Bow, Ermineskin, and Sampson. They've been hit hard as well. Local leadership's telling me the loss of oil and gas activity have been a struggle. As we all know, the loss of economic prosperity often means an effect of socio-economic well-being, and these communities are dealing with that fallout. The good news is local leadership has been acquiring and opening new businesses and farmland to offset the resource development loss. I'm excited to invite them to participate in the Indigenous Opportunities Corporation once it is established. We had discussions about that today during our summit with the Alberta Chiefs, a meeting not held in almost 4.5 years. I'm also proud to report that the four bands have amalgamated their schools into one district. They are doing an amazing job graduating students from their schools and their own college. They have their own health system, and I was there just 2 weeks ago and got a tour of that facility, which offers all under one roof, dental, optical, community pharmacy, and a diabetics clinic, with plans one day of opening up their own hospital. Eventually, they would also like to add a dialysis, IV therapy, and seniors care as well. The city of Wetaskiwin also has a great hospital and senior care facilities. I was honored to be the chair of the hospital board and later chair of the region. One of the biggest accomplishments I was most proud of was to get a dialysis unit for the area's residents and my own father is now also using that dialysis unit. So residents don't have to drive to Edmonton or farther to receive saving care. As we all know, it's incredibly exhausting for family members to drive long distances for this type of care. So it's critical for we get this type of support and medical service in the rural areas and Indigenous communities. There are so many little hamlets and towns in my riding I cannot mention due to time, but a quick shout out to some like Millet, Pigeon Lake, Hay Lakes, Farintosh, Fallon, Roleview, and Mulhurst. A big concern in my constituency is addictions and mental health. I'm so proud our government has appointed a Minister of Mental Health and Addictions. I will be meeting with the Minister to discuss this important issue and look for solutions. Sadly, residents, especially the younger people, taking their own lives is a big concern in Maskwacis. They have made tremendous strides to slow down these terrible incidents, but as we can all attest, even one life gone too early is one too many. I'd like to now discuss a little bit myself so my colleagues and Albertans have a better understanding of who I am and what drove me to accept running in this election. Was it the 15 days of endless meetings or having to memorize thick binders of public policy? It was a thought I could give back to my friends and family, my fellow citizens of Maskwacis-Wetaskiwin, no matter how small my contribution might be. My family has a long history of public service. So I'll start with my grandpa serving in World War I. You've probably seen the movie Passchendaele. A lot of that's based on my family's history. If you look up in the Edmonton Journal, Love in a Dangerous Time, you'll see a picture of my grandma and grandpa in there. My grandpa was one of 17 survivors of that battle, 1,000 men. That's how many died from the Princess Pats in Edmonton here. He was pronounced dead on the battlefield, but somehow he wasn't only mostly dead, came back, and he was a medic, so he dressed his own wounds and made it back to the clinic, and 6 weeks later awoke in England to a little Welsh lady who nursed him back to health, and he married her, and that became my grandma and grandpa. My dad was in the militia in the Korean War, and my dad's cousin is Lieutenant Governor Grant McEwen. My dad was also on village council, and my oldest daughter was a councillor for the city of Wetaskiwin and is now a municipal administrator. Another daughter was a page here in this very chamber. My father had a big influence on me, amazing me with his many talents. I can always remember him helping out in the community, anyone and anywhere he could. I remember when natural gas was being installed in the area, so my dad became an expert in converting furnaces, and as a result was gone every night helping where it was needed. One time I said I was going along, and my dad thought, wow, my son is taking up the family trade, until he realized the house we were going to had 5 girls, one of which became my wife. My mother's family came from Odessa, Russia, which is now the Ukraine. My mom was raised in a log cabin with a dirt floor, but thought she was the richest person in the world. Because there was always so much love in the family. A lesson passed down to me. My mom always told me, you'll be remembered for what you give back to the community, not what you take out. My wife's mother was widowed, who had 10 kids all at home, and she raised them all by herself, including a pair of 2-year-old twins, all by herself with no help on the farm, which my wife and I ended up buying. We just recently turned that 120-year-old family farm to our son, who's now running it. I'm blessed to have such an amazing partner as my wife. I call her my trophy wife after 41 years. She's patient and loving and has always supported me in my business ventures. In my political life, I would not be where I am without her. We have 4 amazing grown children, 3 girls, 1 boy, 7 grandchildren, and I love them all dearly. My youngest daughter and her wife and my grandson know that I love them so much, and I am incredibly proud of all their accomplishments. I also have 2 Maiden grandchildren. I look forward to talking to them as they grow up and telling them most of them was Minister of Indigenous Relations. I've always had various business ventures on the go to support my farming life. I've been lucky enough to be involved in a lot of development in my riding and was always proud to open and support businesses in the Maskwacis area when a lot of people weren't willing to do so. I want to conclude by thanking the Premier for his appointment. What an honor and humbling experience it has been in my short time so far. And I always remember fondly being sworn in as Minister of Indigenous Relations. I also want to take time to thank all the members of the House for your kindness and your support. I also need to thank the many people who got me here, some who closed up shop and spent weeks with doors closed and volunteered on my team 7 days a week. I I thank my family and my wife who have seen my time with them diminish greatly. When we take this job, we also take our families with us. We owe them a debt we can never repay. I stand before you tonight and will continue to work hard, stay humble, and keep our commitments to Alberta. Maskwacis-Wetaskiwin. Thank you, your friend and partner. And with that, Madam Speaker, I move to adjourn debate.